So I've talked about Brimstone before. It's an incredible missile, and many of you may consider it to be purely an anti-armor missile. I certainly did for a while, and that's still how I regard it largely. We see implementations for Brimstone in a lot of areas, on a lot of different platforms. We see it used for close air support on the Apache, the AH-64E, and of course the Eurofighter Typhoon. We potentially see implementation from a static launch platform, from these sort of pre-positioned ground launchers. And there's also the development of the program by MBDA, which is Brimstone on Themis, in which you'd see the missile sort of on a semi-autonomous, semi-remote controlled tank-killing robot. Yet, when I think of Brimstone, I don't really think of its use at sea. I think of it as an anti-armor missile. Because the fact of the matter is, how can you use an anti-armor missile at sea? The last time we saw tanks going for a swim was with the duplex drive tanks. There was, the Second World War's Donald Duck tanks. Beyond Hobart's funnies, I'm right. You don't tend to see tanks swimming with frigates, yet Brimstone has actually, developed as a pretty potent maritime missile. It has brilliant maritime application. It has great ability to take out fast boats. It doesn't take up too much room. It doesn't have to be aimed in the same way that an unguided, shell from a ship gun might. And actually, to my surprise, the maritime application is largely, in the future, going to be able to potentially take out a lot of swarming enemies really, really quickly, and that's important. I'll explain a little bit. The first thing to cover is what makes the Maritime Brimstone different. It features all the same sort of all-weather active millimeter wave radar seekers, the semi-active laser guidance, and that makes it brilliant at hitting fast-moving targets through directional prediction. It utilizes the same mid-course inertial guidance with the STAN AG 3733, which is a laser designator. It even utilizes the same propulsion system, which has a cast double-base propellant rocket motor and strip steel laminate motor casing. All of this stuff is the same. It's just as precise, it's just as quick, it's just as predictive, it's just as penetrative. It keeps a really similar range to actually the land-based Brimstone missile. So the question is, what makes it different? What makes it specifically maritime? Other than just, sticking it on a boat or a ship? Well, first off, the logistics of putting it on a boat or a ship. In this case, it's most likely going to be installed in some sort of canister, or potentially on an armoured rail system, in order to house it for these shorter range targets. So it actually does need to change launch platform capability. And that's the first difference, is the platform in itself. We don't often think that there has to be a lot of change, but there does. There has to be some sort of housing, and its operation within this housing will partially determine how effective it is, how often it's spotted, how quickly it can be dealt with by the enemy. Beyond this, one needs to actually add it to ship targeting designation, the electronic architecture, which will require a lot of work. Or you can just keep it classically laser designated with the STAN AG3733. So, again, we arrive at the same question. What makes the Maritime Brimstone different to any other Brimstone variant? And the answer is, really nothing. The warhead is the same. It utilizes the tandem charge, which is designed for armored targets. It's designed to penetrate reactive armor. It's designed to actually make a hole to let that second charge through. So the question arises, what actually has the Maritime Brimstone changed? Is it just an anti-tank missile? Will it be adapted to better suit a maritime arena of war? And the answer is I don't know, but likely no. And this is actually really a testament to how versatile Brimstone is. It can take on an entirely different platform, a ship, with minimal change and have a huge effect. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's not a very good thing. What we want nowadays is modularity. What we want nowadays is being able to specialize based upon changes. We want something that can change its specialization. Generalism is bad. And that is, true to a degree. You want specialization as much as possible, but at the same time you want something which does the job, which is combat tested, which Brimstone is, and which, has power to actually control the situation. And that's the thing. These Brimstone units, the real benefit to Brimstone is that it is so versatile. This is way more significant than people think. It can be equipped on multiple platforms, and that means that it's logistically very, very good during wartime. The unit can be transferred, even at the last minute, from about to be mounted on a helicopter to mounted on a ship, or about to be mounted on a ship to being mounted on an autonomous Themis unit. It also means that if you have it installed on a ship, one can very quickly, potentially even in the future, transport it pretty much in situ to a UAS which could also carry it, something akin to BAE Systems Concept 1. Now, it's really mind-boggling how much logistical efficiency that would create during wartime. The fact that you can have this munition, move it from place to place, and not even have to adapt it really in any way possible. It's a generalist, but that versatility is a huge bonus to it, because it means that logistically, one can basically place them wherever they need to go. There are no supply chain stops, as it were. There's no gate to prevent it operating on any system at any time. It's always in operation, and that's a really important thing. Now, the second question is, why would you want to put Brimstone on a ship? We've said how it could be put on a ship. We've said why it might logistically be good. But what could it actually be used for? After all, you have far more sort of firepower on a ship anyway. Brimstone is designed for tanks. That's generally not something that's going to destroy an aircraft carrier. And it won't destroy an aircraft carrier, but what it's been really proven to be good at is its use in preventing maritime swarming. Now, when I say swarming in this context, people probably get an image of a swarming UAS, of sort of a quad drone in a huge, bat-like flock. That's not quite what this is. If you have fast boats equipped with missile systems that need to be dealt with quickly, and they are swarming, so UMS, that's unmanned maritime systems, you have these things which can eventually learn to swarm, and that's a pretty big issue for larger ships that can't necessarily deal with them, and certainly can't deal with them so cheaply or so quickly. And because this technology for maritime swarming is really coming on leaps and bounds, on a daily basis, the idea of fast swarming boats, of coming towards a larger ship which might overwhelm it, that's becoming a scarier reality day by day. And these unmanned maritime systems, these fast boats, they could be equipped with missiles. They might have gun capability, laser capability, countermeasure capability. They could have a lot of stuff, but realistically, one needs to deal with these autonomous swarming boats quickly and effectively. And similarly, the boat itself, the ship itself that's trying to fight these off, might not have the infrastructure, the capability with guns, with missiles, with lasers, with countermeasures to actually deal with all of these boats at once, and certainly not in a cost-effective manner. So if you don't have time to deploy the Sea Venom Wildcats, or let's say the risk of these missile-carrying boats is too high for machine gun fire to deal with them perhaps a bit more slowly, then there's only really one option. You've got to deal with them quickly with a precise strike that's going to hit and sink them immediately, destroy everything on board. And that's where the Maritime Brimstone comes in. One can defeat swarming targets, particularly in sort of closed littoral areas, because of course it can operate in maritime arenas as well as on land, which makes it really effective, and you can utilize that in multiple ways. Again, it's versatile in function, not just in platform, but you can effectively launch it in these sort of closed, rather stressful situations with the push of a button. Without having to deploy the Wildcats to operate Sea Venom, it can be done in short notice. It can be done with high precision to great effect. So you've got the tandem-shaped charge warhead alongside the semi-active laser and the active millimeter wave radar seeker. And that means simply, and it's also traveling above Mach 1, I think Mach 1.3. It means that when it counts, when the fast craft begin to swarm, like, littoral piranhas, piranhas which are carrying machine guns, missiles, torpedoes, potentially even deployable UUS, when it matters, the strikes by these brimstones are basically getting rid of these fast craft is done really quickly, is done with huge accuracy, and is done with huge impact. They're accurate, and the threat is dealt with a sense of finality. So, if Maritime Brimstone is just a brimstone, does that matter? Well, not really, because it's still hugely effective, and it packs a punch when it counts. So is it just a brimstone? Is it just an ordinary brimstone? Yeah. But will it be enormously useful and logistically intelligent due to its transferability, and deal with threats as it should quickly, and not take up too much deck space if it's put on the deck? Yeah. I think it's actually a pretty nifty idea. And the fact of the matter is, Brimstone has a lot of applications, and this versatility, this generalization, which a lot of people are arguing against in favor of specialist modularity, is something which has huge benefit with logistics. Everyone loves explosions. Everyone likes to hear that something is specialized, but the backbone of a wartime operation is logistics, as well as firepower. So Brimstone delivers both logistics and firepower. I'll leave it there.